How's it going, everybody? I am Inverse. Name's Miles. I do music production. I do mixing, and I just wanted to walk through this mix that I did for Athena Nightingale for Dokuzu, which she released what, a week ago now, something like that. I did a recording before, but I just didn't like it. I felt like I rambled a little bit too much, and I'm still gonna ramble, but I'm gonna ramble a little bit less. Let's be a little bit more concise. But anyways, so a lot of things that I've definitely struggled with in the past being a mixer, and I'm by no means like good at it now, but I've definitely learned a lot. And there's a lot of stuff that I can probably teach to you guys if you are learning how to mix. It's really a trial and error thing, though. So if you're learning this, you literally just start doing it. You just start mixing. You get someone's vocals and go like, "Hey, I could mix this for you." There's a ton of people out there who are, putting out covers. You can always offer to do it, and maybe I'll give you a few things to pick up to start off with, and then you just got to start practicing it yourself. You also need a few plugins. You don't need them, but it helps. And I'm going to be showing you like stuff that I did with paid plugins because I'm trying to make this stuff good, so I'm going to use the best stuff I can. In a lot of cases, like compressors, EQs, reverbs, a lot of those do come native on a DAW. So like, feel free to substitute any of the things that I use here with your own like DAW's equivalent or your own third-party plugin equivalent. Like if you have any of those things. So for starters, I'm just gonna show you the vocals and the basic vocal chain. Right? Okay, hold on. I'm gonna turn the input a little bit lower here so you can hear a higher ratio of my voice to the music. Okay, boom. Now, onto the vocal chain. This is typically how I do things. Like this is how I usually set it up. So plugin order usually goes one EQ, and this is a shaping EQ. This is where we do our high pass filtering. I do mine at around 92 hertz. I'm using this console emulation plugin because I think they sound really nice, and nicer sounding reverbs that are like meant to be in like an SSL emulation, like this one from Plugin Alliance or stuff like that. They tend to sound a lot better, especially when you boost frequencies. I think that's like one of the biggest things. They tell you not to boost stuff when you're doing any kind of audio engineering or mixing. That's usually for beginners, and it's true. Don't abuse like boosting. It's better to cut than it is to boost. However, if you are going to boost, be careful about it, but find places that sound good by over boosting them at first, and then being like, "Huh, that sounds like pretty okay." When I actually boost the crap out of it, like way too much. So if I boost it a little bit, it's gonna sound better than it did before I boosted it. So that's kind of what you're thinking, and yeah. So this one's just a general shaping EQ, high pass filter 92. I do a high shelf, and yeah, I like the sound of doing high shelves on vocals. Sometimes vocals don't need it because they have plenty of high information. But if you're using like a less than stellar microphone, or less than stellar preamp, less than stellar recording setup, then chances are we could probably benefit from brightening up the vocals a little bit by putting up a shelf here. So this one's at 8.4, and shelf means that it's just taking everything and boosting it up beyond a certain point. So like at 8.4 all the way until 30,000 hertz, it's going to boost it about this amount. And we did another boost at 4.4, did another boost at 1.2, and that's kind of like the mids. This is like the high mids. Like this is where it starts to sound a little bit whistly, 4.4. And these aren't things that you do with every vocal. This depends on like what kind of vocals you're getting. Sometimes it sounds good to do these kinds of boosts. Sometimes it doesn't. Next, we have the... Wait, before I go next, I'm going to cut out all of the stuff. There we go. And then cut out everything except for the plugin that we're currently on. So this is what it sounds like just with the 9000. I'm going to solo out the vocals too. Right. Okay. So then we put that into a compressor. So this is like an 1176. Generally, vocal compression is going to be high attack, high release because you really, really want to pull in those. You want to rein in those like differences in dynamics when someone's singing. You want to be able to rein it in pretty fast. 1176s already have hugely fast attack. And if I turn this all the way up, by the way, up means faster on this. If you turn it up too high, you actually do lose some you lose some of the dynamics that make it good, but you still do want to have like a pretty fast attack. I don't know how much this is in milliseconds, like if you're using another compressor, but there's a manual for this plugin, so it will tell you the exact like millisecond amounts for attack and releases. That sounds pretty good. Ratio 4:1. I turn headroom down. I use headroom as the threshold because 1176s don't have thresholds that you actually set. They have input and output. So if you want more compression, it means that you drive the input higher, and thus it will hit the threshold and then it will get compressed. For this emulation that they have, they've included a headroom knob, which is really nice. So instead of getting like, you would get some like really, you would get a much different sound if you were like upwards compressing it with input than you would if you were to set the headroom lower. I can show you right now. It actually sounds a little bit more fried. And that's because this thing, even if it's not compressing, you can actually disable all compression on this thing. I think you can bypass the compression on it. It's still coloring the sound and the more you drive input, the more coloration it'll add. And sometimes you want that, sometimes you don't. But in this case, I really didn't want to get like that super like upwards compressed kind of more distorted fuzzy sound. I also have other like saturation sources on it already, and it is already coloring it the way it is now. So let's turn that back to 8. I had it. Make sure we're gain stage pretty well so we're not hitting clipping already. All right, great. Next I have Saturn. Saturn is just doing a little bit more saturation on it. Saturation on vocals, pretty important. A lot of plugins might, especially like something like Purple, it might already color the sound, so maybe you don't need Saturn, but I felt like doing it on this because whatever. Maybe I wouldn't do it again. I don't know. I should try stuff. I try stuff like a ton of different ways, so I'm always learning. But yeah, just a little bit of bonus saturation, a little bit more hangs onto the ears, like clearer highs. It just sounds better. So I typically put Saturn on vocals. That's like my go-to source of like just analog style saturation. Pro Q, and this is where we do our more like surgical EQs, where we can do a lot of different boosts and cuts, because that's kind of what FabFilter is meant to do. You can have like, I think you can have 30 EQ points on it, and you can make them real thin, so you can do like, oh, there's something annoying here, you can just take that and you can turn it down. This is like really, really nice. Really, really. So, and I'm pretty sure this is like the standard EQ. Like, I think no matter who you look at, who's producing, who's mixing, they probably have Pro Q, and they use it to varying degrees. But pretty much everybody's using Pro Q. The little whistly boy here. We make little thin bands to take out the whistly boys. When you look at the mix and you hear there's a little bit too much of a certain thing, you go into Pro Q, you boost it, and you go, ah, that's what it is. Like you might first think, oh, I'm hearing something, and it sounds kind of like in the lower area, it sounds like boxiness. So then you go and you boost the area that you think is the problem, where you kind of sweep. Oh, yeah, that was the thing that I noticed, so I can turn that down a little bit now. So that's kind of like how you EQ stuff with Pro Q. Yeah, I did a little bit more of a mid boost here. I took something out a little bit at 2K, and I did a little bit more of a shelf here. Yeah, sounds good so far. we have the glorious OTT over the top. I only have it at 12%, and I like to take the time and turn it up a little bit, so that'll make it so. That'll make it so it'll let a little bit of the stuff through before it gets compressed. So it's a lot like it's literally attack and release times, but it's on OTT. So yeah, it's nice if you want to have a little bit more transients come through on vocals. Yeah, and generally be pretty subtle with OTT, especially if you already have a lot of stuff that's like, you know, saturating your vocals. So like OTT is only going to be even more extra saturation, and at high ratios, at high depth, it can sound like just annoying. It'll just sound like we're not trying to have that. We're trying to have like just a tiny bit of that, so that you can still get like more fuzziness, more of the stuff that kind of cuts through a mix, makes vocals sound good. We have a de-esser. A lot of different de-essers out there. I don't really like the way a lot of them sound. If you're gonna invest in a de-esser, I don't actually recommend this one because I think it's expensive. So I would get the FabFilter stuff. Like if you're just starting to mix, the first thing you should probably get is the FabFilter bundle. Like just get all the FabFilter stuff. Maybe not all of it. Mainly get Saturn, get DS, get Pro Q, get Pro Multiband, and anything else. Maybe get Volcano. I just found out about Volcano and like have been messing with it. Sounds really good. So yeah, maybe get Volcano too. But yeah, first things to get all the FabFilter stuff, and then maybe think about getting a subscription to Plugin Alliance, which is $250 a year, and they give you a $250 voucher for any plugin on their website. It's really, really good. They have so many good plugins on, and $250 a year, really not that much of an investment. That's I don't know how much a month. That's $20 a month, $21 a month. It's worth it. They have some of the best plugins out there. And then we have Soothe. Oh yeah, let me show you the de-esser. Yeah, so we generated a lot of sibilancy type of frequencies with all the processing that we've done already, with the compression, with the saturation, with the Pro Q. Actually, not as much with the Pro Q, a little bit with the console. Like even doing things like that high shelf. Like when you do a high shelf up there, that's affecting sibilance. Sibilance is really far up there. So sibilance can go all the way from like 6 point something all the way to like 12,000. So yeah, all this stuff is generating sibilance. So this is where we take it out. We take it out at the end. De-esser at the end, almost always. It's doing a good job. So Soothe is it's developed by wizards, like actual wizards. It's a magical plugin. You it's expensive too, but I can't recommend this one enough. Like this one's so good. This is like a dynamic, kind of like a dynamic EQ that has some crazy AI in it or algorithm that's able to kind of find stuff that sounds harsh to the ears, like right as it comes through, and you can change its depth too much, and it starts to sound glitchy. It starts to sound kind of artifacty and weird. Like it just sounds really weird when you turn it up. Especially combined with sharpness. Yeah, so just be a little bit selective with it. And these EQ points right here, these are kind of like your this is the focus on a problem area button right here. So like so I was noticing a lot of the whistly stuff at 4.7, so that's where I kind of focused it. And then there was stuff here, I guess. This is probably more of a mixed decision. It was that there was stuff that it was poking out or building up, all mixed. So I did a little bit here, and that's the whole vocal chain. I did the same thing on the other main vocals, except on the other main vocals, Looks like we have a Saturn here, and this Saturn is like I have this like filtered out, and this is an effect that I do later on in the song, which I'll show you. So let's start going through these like reverbs. These other effects are sends. So for starters, we got our reverb. So, man, am I clipping these vocals? No, it's something else. I have to click on it so it stops. Because once it clips, it's kind of like normal machines, like analog stuff, preamps and such. They would when they would clip, they would just put a red light on, and you'd have to like manually turn it back off so you'd know when it clips again. But yeah, vocals are fine. Good. Verb. Using LX480. I also recommend, as a mixer, getting as many reverbs as you can possibly get your hands on, because they all sound so different from one another, and there's so many different situations that demand a different reverb sound. And it's nice to vary up your reverbs even within one session. Like, let's say you do have like a song with like a lot of different instrumentation on it. You don't want to always be using one reverb over and over and over again. Using the same plugin too much in one session, especially in big sessions with a lot of iterations of that plugin, plugins tend to color the sound in a similar way to one another. And once you start doing that, it'll like start to build up a certain sound. So you don't want to have, like, for example, if I were to just use this a million times on like a big song, you wouldn't really want that. It would start to sound a little weird, and it would be better if you use other reverbs. So this one sounds great though. We low pass it. This actually starts by default with a low pass on it, and I think low pass is always like a pretty welcome thing to do on reverbs. Reverbs can sound annoying when you turn them up here. So just remember, if you're like, no matter what kind of reverb you're using, see what it sounds like low pass, because it usually helps. This is a short reverb, so we kept our time pretty low. Shape. Shape is like the early, or the first main reflection of the reverb. It's like where you want that to be placed. It's kind of like pre-delay. Red is a similar thing, except it will diffuse it more when the main stuff comes through. So I like a little bit tighter with the spread. Size, I was demoing this before in another video, so and I'm not gonna put that one out just because I made a mistake on it and I didn't record. But I had the size down at 24 actually, so 24 meters. Big difference. So like the two biggest factors that you're gonna have with reverbs is the size and the delay time, or the reverb time, and they're kind of linked to each other. So like if turning the size up does make it actually have like a longer decay. It lasts for a lot longer when you turn the size up. But size just sounds a little different. It really does make it sound like it's in a bigger or smaller room. Yeah, so we just went for a shorter reverb with that one. And then the reason I do a shorter reverb is because I also want to have a longer reverb. So I like to have two reverbs usually on vocals. One of them is shimmer, and I almost always use shimmer. I kind of abuse it. I should probably learn how to rely on other plugins rather than shimmer for vocals. But shimmer sounds freaking amazing. This is what it sounds like. It's like a very, very long, kind of soft, patty reverb. You can change the mode to big stereo, and it'll make it sound even more long and patty. It's me changing the size, so you can automate this and do weird stuff. Yeah, big stereo sounded a little too big, so I turned it to medium stereo. So I like medium stereo on this. Size is kind of like your decay. Well, it's similar to decay, like I said with the other reverb plugin, the LX480. Size and decay time, very very similar. To be honest, at 0 size with this plugin, it sounds really really nice, and I've never done that before, so it's something that I might want to start using. I might experiment with that a little bit, but yeah, size around here. So combined with the other reverb, and then combined with the vocal. Right. Let's go to a different part of the song, lest we get bored of the repeating of the same part over and over. Okay, that was the same thing. Well, it was just a different verse. Hear about this one. Okay. Delay. So this delay, let's see. We have automation on it. So I actually didn't. I eventually opted out of this delay. So I was sitting here with this delay like for so long, just trying to figure out how to like get the settings right to make it sound decent for the vocals. And I eventually ended up just not using it overall, except I use it in this one section. So like when she goes Dokuzu. So that's to give it a little bit of extra impact. So it's like, you know, and then during this whole part. Yeah, so we put it there, but everywhere else it's muted. Lap delay. So this is something that in hindsight I probably wouldn't have used, because slap delay is like it's like a very fast left and right like dual delay, and that makes things sound wider. So like, right? So it's just like giving your vocals more width. It gives them a little bit more presence in a mix. If you have like a heavier track, like something that's just a lot more dense with sound, it's nice to put a slap on, because the slap will just help make it sound more present. It'll definitely help it cut through a mix a lot more. Because usually vocals are just straight mid, like they're not stereo at all. So things like reverbs help make it sound more stereo, and then slap delays. This is how I make the slap delay. By the way, since it's Ascend, everything's at full mix. But I use Crystallizer. Soundtoys is also a really good set of plugins. If you were to get your hands on something, I would say maybe it's a little bit more down the line, because if you had Fab Filter, oh yeah, Timeless. That's what I remember. Timeless on Fab Filter. Get that one too. That one's really. So we turn recycle is literally the feedback of a decay or of a delay. By default, let me pull up Crystallizer to show you what it looks like by default. So this is Crystallizer by default. It sounds insane. So first of all, it's MIDI sync. MIDI sync on that's on by default, which means that you're locked to like fractions of a note when it comes to your delay time in your splice. So if you want to make a like kind of a slap delay sound, like a fast delay, it's probably better to go free and do something like this. Set it to like 20 to 40, around there. And then back to, oh yeah, and it's also reversed. So all those reflections are playing in reverse. Yeah, so it's a delay that's playing everything that's delayed in reverse, and it's also slicing it into grains, so it's granular. So that's what the splice is. It's like if your splice is at a whole note, then that means it's going to take every bar and like use that as the splice. Right, so it's doing it in one bar at a time, and then we have 1/8 note. So it's just chopping it up into 1/8 note size pieces or like bar size pieces, however you set it. And yeah, the reverse is really cool. I love it. It sounds awesome, but we're not using that for a regular delay sound. So back to this one. We have the recycle fairly low. I could honestly have it at 0. I don't think it makes that much of a difference. It might even be better to have the recycle at nothing because you don't really want feedback on a slap delay. So it's taking a small splice and it's decaying it or delaying it like by a small amount, like 40 milliseconds. And this is usually you want this to be somewhere in the like the Haas effect zone around like 40 milliseconds. So let's see, what else do we do with it? This is a good choice for slap delays for like a number of reasons. Like the splice thing gives it a certain sound. The plugin itself has a certain sound. You can also have this thing where it's pitch offset. So this will take the delays and they will be they'll be slightly off pitch by like a very, very subtle amount. And this is 6 cents. So it's literally 6% of a semitone, or is that 6% of a whole tone? I guess it'd be 12% of a semitone, but yeah. Right, so it sounds like ridiculous when you turn it up like that, but yeah, just a tiny amount, and that helps give it even more presence because it's not exactly the same as the vocal that's going in. It's just a slightly different pitch. So it's interesting. I like it. In hindsight, however, I wouldn't use a slap delay because they do introduce some phasing issues, and sometimes that can you can pay the price by having a little bit harder to mix vocals because that phasing is going to happen like in the mids, it's going to happen like in the low end of the vocals, and it's just you're gonna lose a little bit of clarity. But you do also gain a lot of presence in the mix, so it's a bit of a trade-off. You also risk making something sound like it's from the 80s, which is like if you're going for that, then that's cool. Like, why don't you throw a flanger on as well, and that'll be nice. But like, yeah, it's kind of an old school sound. Not always cool, but a lot of times it is cool. So it's like a useful thing to know how to do. All right, so that's it for the main effects. So yeah, our reverbs and our main vocal chain. That's what that is. So I want to go through the automation stuff that we did and some of the other effects. So the main thing, like the fun and interesting part of the song was going into this section, which we made using Alter Boy and by literally copying the vocals like 4 different times. And before we go into that section, we have this. So this is me bouncing down our X delay. X delay was another plugin that I used at a different point. It's an SSL delay plugin, and you can do this with pretty much any delay sound. It's just taking the delay and gradually increasing the feedback using automation. And when you turn the feedback up, it'll start like actually getting louder. So you want to like feed it back to the point and increase it to the point where it's like right about to like it's fading, but then it starts actually increasing. So like the feedback goes to the point where now it's above 100% and now it's starting to get louder. And I did a bunch of other processing with it too. Yeah, I used a Volcano, so that and this is doing like a whole automation thing as well. So yeah. And that's a pitch envelope right there. So I just turned it. I just had it like automate the pitch way down to like nothing, and that's how it fades out. Right. So that's kind of like that's a good way to make like little tape stop type effect. It's pretty cool. And yeah, volume automation. So volume envelope, making this get a little bit louder. And that would have conflicted with the main vocals too much, right? So. how did we make this section? It's not that complicated, but it's fun to use these kinds of effects. So this is a little altar boy. So let me just start with the first one. Okay, this one. So how did we do that? Well, we copied the vocal over. We copied all the plugins over, almost all the plugins, and then we put altar boy on it, and we adjust the pitch down by -5, and that's basically a fifth. It's seven semitones up is a fifth, or 5 semitones down is also a fifth. So it's a fifth down, right? So this is down by a fifth. And we also have drive on it, so this is like making it sound more deep fried. And that's just layered in with the main vocal, right? So. And then next one that comes in is an octave down. Same thing. Altar boy, down an octave. I changed the formant a little bit, I guess, because let's hear that real fast. Yeah. Just mess around with things, you know. Formant is it's cool that you have this option rather than having them both be always the same. So you can really like make a pitched vocal sound crazy when you mess with formant. Just one of the many things you can do. The other one is, let's see, this one is a fifth up, so it's +7. This one that comes in is 12. At this point. That's when they all start coming in. The other thing that I did is, since these are all just single vocals, and we want these to be like, we want width here, we want these to sound like it's a big, you know, like a big chorus of demonic Athenas. We put vocal doubler. So this is the one that I found that was like, this makes it sound like it's a double. It works pretty well. There's a lot of ways you can do this. Like I said, with a slap delay, you could do it as well. There's all kinds of like stereo width type plugins out there that are free or part of your DAW. But this one, that one I thought sounded pretty good. So that's what I used on all of these. So all of these have. And then finally, before they go out, they are de-essed because they really need de-essing. With all the drive and stuff that I put on them, and just naturally the way Altar Boy kind of like warps vocals, it just makes like the sibilant sounds really, really obnoxious. I could even afford to change this a little bit to make it more intense. Yeah, there you go. Pro Q3, this is, I just, you know, wanted to not make them like, just taking out some of the high end, that's all. And then crystallizer, and this is me just using it kind of like a delay. Jeez, I automated it. Where's the automation? Okay. Now I gotta activate it like this. This is how I have to turn. Doing a lot, isn't it? All right. Yeah, so that's what I use crystallizer for. Just as a delay, basically, because it's a delay. It's a granular, reversey, experimental, fun delay. All right, yeah, that's it. That's what made those doubles happen. And then we have a lot of like automation things that I did. So I actually have these automation lanes open, and this is just volume trim. So like, huge now. Okay, what am I doing there? Zoomed out like that. Let's see. This is something that's really good to do though. Aside from the main automations, which is like me turning it down slightly in certain sections, like this section has less happening. So I have have the reverb and the shimmer down a little bit there, and then we have dropouts. So this is really good too. Like you wanna really mess with space when you're mixing and do things where it's just a huge difference between all the reverb in and then reverb cuts out suddenly. It gives stuff like a way different impact. So it's something that's really good to experiment with. Like right, so even though the track's still going, you can hear that like all of a sudden it sounds a lot drier there. Right, so reverb. Right, okay. So it's a good thing to mess with. Definitely recommend doing automations on stuff like that. You can automate everything obviously, but like certain things is really useful to automate. Even the volume for the vocals. There'll be a section of the song where you want the vocals to be less loud. Change it. Right, sounds super cool there. And then here. And this one we had one of our altar boy doubles come back in, and this time we turned off the crystallizer. So this is why I had the automation for it. So it's the same thing, but except now there's no crystallizer on it, so it doesn't sound like this. I just wanted it to sound dry there. And then what else? Oh, yeah, I guess I was messing with volume trim here because I wanted these doubles to cut out. And once you've created automation, now you must continue to automate. So I have to automate. And yeah, that was just to bring that back in. And then yeah, all reverbs go off here. Ooh, pretty nifty. What about this? Right, so this is what I use Saturn for. Saturn. This is Saturn with like, you can use Saturn as basically like an EQ or like a bandpass filter, low pass, high pass, bandpass kind of thing, and you combine that with like the drive, so you can instantly in one plugin make like give it the sound of like someone speaking over the phone or over the radio or something. It's like a radio filter. Right, so since this is like a multi-band thing, I can make like a ton of these, right? And then you just simply like go to solo it, mute it. You want to take out different stuff. This is a really nice plugin, man. I love it. So yeah. And here. Cool. And yeah, this is more automation just to bring the volume up on these things actually. So here it would have been too much if it was like this. Right, huge difference. I don't want it to be like too present in this section where it's just a piano and like a drum. A piano and a clap and like a bass. That's it. And this section is like building up to something else. So then when it builds up to here, you bring the volume up a little bit. So now you can hear more of the reverbs and the shimmer, and it sounds less annoying. And then finally we bring it up here, and now I'm just maxing out the trim volume here. Oh yeah, this was my favorite part when it comes to like like talking about like volume automation, automating reverbs on and off. This is like the best possible example for it. Like this part sounds infinitely cooler because of that. Like if I do this, like if this had reverb on it, it wouldn't sound as cool. Like yeah, it just wouldn't sound as cool if we did it like that. So that's really valuable. What else can I talk about on this mix? There's definitely a few more things that we do. trying to remember what though. Oh yeah, there's these guys right here. Oh yeah, that's a reverse reverb that I rendered out, and that's right before this part comes in. So that's pretty cool. Just experiment with reversing stuff and with rendering things. Render your plugins, render your reverbs, and reverse them, chop them up, uh, put envelopes on them to make the volume automate up or make the pitch go up and down. Stuff like that is really cool. And then there's this. This is another little transition effect that we made, I think, with another reversed reverb. Yeah, so literally took the reverb and the shimmer and I rendered them out, and then I chopped them into tiny little pieces and had them automate up, and also like gives you that little jittery thing. Pretty cool, yeah. Stuff like that, it makes a difference. And even if it doesn't make that much of a difference and nobody notices and it doesn't make the thing better, it's still fun, okay? We still had fun, right? That's what matters. So let me think what else. I could go over editing and maybe tuning a little bit and just talk about how I edit. That could be a pretty important thing. I could you know what? I'm going to go over the master. And I'll probably do editing and tuning stuff in another video because there's a lot I can say about it. And I would say it's like one of the biggest factors in a good mix. It's probably like half of what makes a good mix sound good is in the editing. Really, it's huge. Like having well-timed vocals and having them edited in a way where they don't sound fake. Like one of the biggest things you can do is have good editing. Change your sure. So, master. Let me pull up. This is like the mixer that we use. I've been using Reaper for a little while, about a month. I've used it for a lot of hours. It's amazing. It only costs $60, and I haven't paid $60 yet, but they let me do all this stuff on Reaper for free. So, I'm gonna open. How do I look at show FX chain? Okay, cool. There we go. Let's see. So this is Voxango. This is how I actually make the sound come out into my OBS. So we need that. There's our loudness meter. This is our Weiss maximizer or our limiter. This one I got from my friend through, he had an iLok license. So I get this, which is really good. It's a really good limiter. Pro Q. Let me disable all this stuff so you can kind of get an idea what it's doing. First of all, you lose quite a lot of loudness because that's a huge source of loudness is what that limiter is doing. It's a really nice limiter. It sounds good when you drive it. But this is something you should probably always do in every song. Usually I would say there's like no like hard and fast rules to mixing, but you usually want to take out all the stuff that's like below 30, 38, sometimes below like even 40, because this is the cutoff point to what your ears can actually hear for bass. Bass is not really audible at that point once you get below here. It's a little it's definitely like something that you can feel. Like if you have like a big set of speakers, there's still stuff at like 35, 36 that will come in like it'll rumble, so you'll feel that, but generally this stuff is just going to like kill your headroom. So you want to take it out. It'll either kill your headroom or it'll mess with other frequencies. But mainly it's going to kill your headroom. See, it's taking out all this. This is just like, it's just useless information down there that you don't really need. And it just adds extra dB for you to have to deal with at the end when you're string it. So you're not going to be able to get as much loudness. So take that out. This, I don't know why. I guess that's why I was at the very end. I was, this is a lazy kind of EQ, is when you put EQ on the master and you start messing with stuff, but it works. If there's still more stuff in your song at the very end, and you're feeling kind of lazy, then by all means take it out with a big EQ on the master track. Then we have a bus compressor. I have the SSL bundle. Me and my friend pitched on the SSL bundle because you can get 2 licenses for it, and it costs like $75 for a year. Or did it cost? Was it $150 for a year and I paid $75, or was it $75 and I paid even less? Something like that. But yeah, this is like your mastering compressor. Let's do a bypass. So it's just adding more dynamics to it, and it's this is what they call it. They call it gluing, which is a really terrible word. And if you, it's one of those things where it's like, if you know, you know. Like nobody knows what the hell gluing is. Like gluing a sound together when you're first explaining what a glue compressor does. But just to like sum it up, it's taking all of the sounds that are going through it and making them move at the same time as one another in dynamics. They will get compressed and what do you call it? Attenuated. They get attenuated at the same time, and they follow each other. So gluing means that it makes it sound like it's all part of one song rather than just a bunch of separate elements coming together to form a song. So like glue, hence the name, glue compressor, it glues it together. And this is a nice one. I use a lot of SSL stuff now since I have their whole bundle, and I think like tons of it sounds really good. This is a big mastering saturator, and it sounds really awesome. It's called Black Box, and this one is also from Plugin Alliance. So it has the main component of Black Box is the pentode and triode. This is a single circuit where these two are like in stages. They're in sequence. So pentode hits triode, hits output. If I were to turn pentode all the way down, you wouldn't hear triode, or yeah, you wouldn't hear anything. Similarly, if I turn triode down, you wouldn't hear anything either. Right? This is fun to use. It just sounds really good when you drive it, and you can kind of like figure out like what sounds best on it. Doesn't always work. Sometimes I think it'll like actually shrink a mix and make it sound smaller. But a lot of times I really do like it. So let's see. Yeah, if I turn pentode up, that's where it sounds like driven, and then here's triode. That one sounds better to me. It sounds like it's got more clarity. Then we have the alternate, like these are on parallel circuits. So we have air, and this is, I didn't really need much air. In fact, I could probably get rid of air entirely, but air is like super treble saturation. So turning it all the way up, you can hear it definitely sounds a little bit more like airy. Can't think of a better word. What do you call that stuff that's like above 10K that makes it sound like a little brighter, makes it sound kind of more expensive? Because it's airy. So yeah, but I didn't need that because I already had plenty of that in the song, so I could honestly just turn it off. Oh yeah, and then there's this saturation. Here's another saturation knob. You can set it between low, mid, and high. I like it at low. Just saturating the lows. Sounds good. Great. And then this is the loudness machine. So this is going to be shocking. Make sure to turn your volume back down. And I'm going to play it with the Weiss. I'm going to turn my master volume down a little bit. All right. And I'll just talk about this. So this is a limiter with an effect on it. So it has 5 styles: loud, punch, wide, DS, transparent. I'm either using loud or punch. Like, I think they both sound pretty good. me play a more like dynamic, like a more rhythmic part of the song. Let's find something. Actually, you know what? I can turn my master back. Turn the master back. I'm not turning it all the way up, but. So this setting kind of works maybe a little bit like a transient shaper, I guess, where it's just enhancing the attack of different parts of the song. So it sounds kind of nice. And loud. It's different from just hitting the limiter harder with more gain, but it does make it sound louder. In hindsight, I might have used punch better. Like that would have been better. But yeah, and then you have your limiter gain. So I added like 6 dB of it. I made sure that I had like plenty of headroom before I did this. So you don't always put 6 dB of limiter gain on, but if your mix is quiet before it goes into the master, then it's helpful to do something like this. Oh, geez. Neighbor's dog barking. Okay. You know, I have to keep the window open, otherwise it gets hot in here. But also, I have to listen to that dog barking. So, yeah, 6 dB of gain. It's still not all that loud. In fact. Oh yeah. Because I changed the volume. Is the volume affecting it before it hits the plugins? That'll be weird. I think it is. Wait a sec. No, it's not. Okay. Yeah, the volume doesn't. That would be so dumb if it did that. I would be like, what the hell, Reaper? Yeah, you have a lot of free headroom above 0 when you use something like this. So, like, this is hitting like 4, like -4, maybe -5 of like gain reduction. So it's going that much over 0 occasionally, and you really don't notice it too much. Like you don't notice it at all, really. It can handle it. So yeah, that sounds great. I love that plugin. Yeah, loudness meter. So this is what I always put at the end, just to see like how much are we hitting. Yeah, so we're not really hitting like that loud. I see people hit like -7, sometimes even -5 on their masters. Pretty crazy. I don't know how some people do it, but if you're very good at EQing things, and if you're making a whole production, of course, and you have like a lot of control over everything, like you can limit each instrument bus and get it like the exact way you want it to sound, and it'll still have like loudness. And with each thing individually limited, you can eventually, it can all like, you know, all the rivers will come together, form a big river of a louder sounding mix. So some people are able to get really, really loud mixes. On top of that, when you have access to like a really nice analog transformer, like you would in like a Neve console, or my mentor actually at his studio, he has this thing called it's called dangerous AD converter. So that's like analog to digital. You basically route the sound outside of like it comes out of your what was it, your interface. Like you send different buses, like let's see, of instruments, vocals, drums, right? You send all three of those out into this little two bus thing, and then they are summed together, and then they go back in to this device, the AD converter, which then like slams them all and converts them back into digital, which goes back into your DAW, back into your computer, and it comes out sounding a lot louder with very like minimal like consequences. Like it doesn't sound clipped at all. It just sounds louder, and it gives it like more of a mastering quality. It just sounds like it's got like a professional sound to it. Really nice. But I don't have access to those things, so I just use like regular plugins. And this is I don't care too much about hitting huge loudness levels. So yeah, this is fine. And yeah, that's it. Anything else here? All these guys down here were like my reference tracks, and these are my timing and tuning tracks. So like I I would take the vocals, and first I would time them by doing all this stuff, and then I would render that out, take the rendered file, and then I would tune it. So then I would have, Auto Tune Pro here, and then I would start manually tuning it. Once I'm done manually tuning it, I render it again, and that's when I start actually like mixing it. You put mixing plugins on it as well before, like you still want to like maybe put a compressor and an EQ on it while you're timing and tuning it, so you can just hear it better in the mix. You might as well just use the same, like more or less the same types of plugins that you would normally use, except you want to keep your auto tune beforehand so that you can like, because auto tune it's going to be relying on like the sound that's coming through to it like directly. So if you were to disable all of your reverbs and your compressors and your EQ and stuff before it hits auto tune, all of a sudden auto tune will be very confused on what's happening, because the sound that is hitting it at a certain point is not going to be the same as when it first analyzed the sound and you made all your manual tuning changes to it. It's a little bit different from using Melodyne, because in Melodyne, it's basically a miniature DAW where it's actually saving the entire vocal performance and all of your changes to it inside of the box. So it actually wouldn't matter if you were then to like, I think if you were even to just delete the vocals, Melodyne would still play them, because it's just going off of what's in its own internal box. But yeah, that's basically it. That's the session. It's pretty simple. Mixing vocals with a backing instrumental that is already created, you really don't have to do too much. So it gives you more chance to focus on things like, and gives you more time and more of a chance to focus on things that are fun and cool, like this, like making a section like that. What did I just do? Like I'm trying to take my transients, turn them down a little bit. There we go. Yeah, you can focus on doing stuff like this and making fun effects like this. Like, yeah, doing stuff like this will really, first of all, if you mix for someone and you do stuff like this, they're gonna want you to mix for them again, because it means you really care about the end product. Like, you're doing this because you care about this and you enjoy it, and that is a good thing. People want that. They don't want someone that's like, yeah, I just put my plugin chain on it and then I just send it to you. Like, okay, well, what are you doing then? Are you like, do you have something to offer me aside from a library of plugins and a DAW? Yeah, so hopefully you're working with someone that's like actually, trying and really like trying to get the thing that they would want to hear. Like, you want to make music, you want to make mixes the way like as if it were your own music. But anyways, that's basically it. So if you've watched this far, I appreciate you, and you can subscribe to me on YouTube if you want. Um, I do post videos occasionally. I'm not like really in the swing of it, but I might be at who knows. But yeah, hopefully you learned something from that, or you just had fun watching me go through this and ramble for like an hour and a half. Oh yeah, exactly an hour. Look at that. So yeah, thank you so much, and see you around.